Welcome to the Whiskey Explorer. Thanks so much for tuning in for another episode, guys. If you haven't done so already, please click the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment down below, let us know what you think about this bourye, and we'll get the conversation started at the Whiskey Explorer. And tonight, guys, we've got a bottle that doesn't actually even make it out to our market here in BC. I actually got my brother to get me this one from Alberta, so this is actually in the Alberta market, but not quite here in BC yet. Don't know if we'll actually see it or not. But it actually, it kind of made its rounds on the whiskey tubes about, I think it was about a year and a half ago. It might have even been 2 years ago now. But I recently got this. It was kind of a little bit of a darling of an independent kind of whiskey company. But they are a non-distilling producer. So this is from Redwood Empire, and this is their Lost Monarch. This one here is a blend of straight bourbons and rye whiskeys. So it would be in the classification of a bourye, if you want to call it that. And this one here, these guys, Lost Monarch, is from Sonoma County in California. So they're actually sourcing their bourbons and ryes from MGP, or what is now actually referred to as, or going by, the Ross and Squibb Distillery. So yeah, as I've said on the channel before, not a huge fan of that. But anyways, interesting bottle here, so I wanted to get it on the channel for a review. So they actually do have a bourbon. Their bourbon is called the Pipe Dream, and they've got a rye which is called the Emerald Giant, and this one here is the combination of rye and bourbon, and it is called the Lost Monarch. And all of their bottles, I'll show you guys close up in the B-roll, but all of their bottles have really cool, in my opinion, really cool bottle designs, really cool artwork on them. And they also have, you know, kind of a nature tie-in. So I believe they do plant at least one tree for every bottle that they sell. So that's kind of cool too. So this doesn't actually say what the proportions of the bourbon rye are, but it does say on here that it is aged a minimum of 3 years. I think it's aged longer, but that's just a guess. So we'll get into this one here. Yeah, really cool artwork on there. And I believe their quotes are I can't remember exactly who it's from, but it's from someone who is kind of famous in kind of nature and poetry, I think is what it was. But I can't remember. If you can remember, leave a comment down below. Let me know. All right, so let's get this one here open and we'll get a pour going. Nice cork pop there. I have had a few sips of this one here, so I've given it a little bit of a time to open up there. Just going to pour a nice small one there tonight because we're going to do a little comparison afterwards. All right, so get the cork back in there. There we go. All right, so let's have a look at the color in the glass before we get started on nosing for this one. So you can probably see on the camera there, the color on this one is very light. It's almost like a light amber color, sort of more like a dark kind of golden straw color to it. So not too much color there, which would kind of lead me to believe that it is, you know, younger bourbon and rye whiskeys being used in this. I don't do a whole lot of ryes on the channel, so I'm just starting to get into ryes now. So I thought this might be a good transition for me to get into rye, being that it's a mix of bourbons and ryes. I haven't been a fan, to be totally honest, I'm just not a huge fan of rye in general. So I'm trying to transition into it, trying to get into it more so that I can cover more of it here on the channel. I do have some more ryes coming up in the future, so we'll get into some of those, but I thought this might be a good transition, and then if it is, it might be something fun to share with you guys for those of you bourbon drinkers out there that are hoping to make the transition into ryes as well, or that would like to enjoy ryes as well. All right, let's go grab a nose on this one here. Cheers. Wow, so the note that just jumped out of the glass, I mean, it really jumped out, was apple juice or almost like a raspberry juice, cherry juice, something along those lines. Very strong kind of fruit juice note. Maybe even like the juice that's left over in those fruit cups you can get, you know, you take in your lunch as a kid. So like that fruit kind of cocktail syrup. That is the dominant nose here. It's that fruit cup syrup, really sweet, cherries, maybe some strawberries in there, fruit syrup, apple juice, fresh fruit. Very bright nose to this, very bright and kind of shiny nose to this one. Very fresh, actually. I could see this being like a good spring or summertime pour for sure, just based on the nose so far. Wow, it's actually got just a really good nose. It's so like jam-packed with fruit flavors. It's like peach, nectarine, apricot, cherries, strawberries. Like that fruit cup, I keep coming back to that. A little bit of vanilla in the background there. Don't really pick up any of the rye on the nose whatsoever. There isn't that strong dill note. There isn't a mint note in there that I can pick up at all. Not that kind of evergreen kind of, or even a pine note. No kind of herbaceous quality that I can pick out right away. Like no kind of savory note to it. It's really all that fruit flavor. It's just packed with fruit flavor on the nose there. All right, let's go in for a taste of this one here on the palate. Cheers. Soft arrival. So I was from the nose, I was expecting it to translate right to the palate. I thought there'd be like an explosion of that fruit flavor. There isn't really, to be honest. What you get up front is vanilla, really strong vanilla. Almost like vanilla that you'd pick up in good like Highland Scotch. So it's kind of got a creamy vanilla quality to the front of the palate. Then there's a little bit of sweet oak in there. Definitely an oak note, a little bit drying, a little bit astringent, but not off-putting in any way. Then there's a transition to kind of cherries, a little bit of vanilla. I'm hunting for those rye notes, but I'm not picking them up. There is a drying quality to this for sure. Kind of like saps your palate of moisture. Well, I get that rye kick at the very, very end. So a little bit of rye spice in there, subtle kind of hint of dill, herbaceous quality to it, a little bit of an earthy feel, a little bit of effervescence and kind of menthol at the very end. Let's go in for a second sip. Cheers. That's sure an enjoyable dram though. You get the sweet kind of vanilla right away. Even before that though, you do get some of those fruit cocktail flavors. So peaches, apricots, a little bit of orchard fruit, apple note in there. Then there's a transition to the vanilla sweetness, confectionery icing sugar, then middle of the palate to end of the palate kind of to finish. There is a transition to baking spices, so it's a rush of cinnamon in there, some allspice. There's a drying aspect to the finish of this as well. I would say the finish on this is about a medium finish. There isn't really like a mouth coating feel to this. It is fairly thin on the palate. I forgot to mention this is 45% ABV or 90 proof, so we wouldn't really expect too much out of the mouthfeel of that anyways, but it's not really there. But it is a really enjoyable sip for sure. So I think that if you're a bourbon drinker who's looking for a transition into rye, this could be the ticket right here. The rye really only comes in near the end of the palate, and it just sort of gives you some extra enhancement to those flavors. So a little bit of like an effervescent kind of mint, spearmint flavor to the finish on this. A mintiness there. A little bit of dill, but not too strong. When I first opened this bottle, it had a ton of dill, and that's kind of one of those rye notes that's off-putting to me. So I'm happy that's kind of opened up and disappeared now. Really enjoyable bourbon rye combo, so bourye as they say. And I thought it would be fun here to compare it to this one here. This is actually a homemade concoction here that I made. So I made my own bourye 6 months to a year ago or so. And this is a combination of cask strength bourbon and 45% ABV or 90 proof Canadian rye, 100% Canadian rye. All right, so let's give this one a little quick comparison here. Pour a quick dram of this one. Just another little sip there. Got other reviews to shoot, so don't want to have too much here. All right. Oh, this cork is pretty hard to get back in. There we go. All right. So let's give it a comparison to this homemade bourye here. So looking at the color, they're already much darker. The cask strength bourbon was actually matured in quarter casks, so it gives quite a bit of interaction with the oak. So there's a much darker color to this, more of like a rich kind of medium amber color. Let's go in for a nose. Cheers. Wow, way sweeter on the nose. So you get sweet vanilla, sweet oak. There's a really strong wood presence here, actually. It's almost like there's a char note, charred wood, charred oak, raisins, plums, dates, figs, sweet kind of, I don't even know what to call that family of fruits, but that's kind of what I'm getting on this one. Maybe a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg in the background there. Let's go in for a quick taste. Cheers. Wow. So I really like this one as well, but completely different animal, and it's kind of a weird one to compare it to because you don't even have the base parts to it here, but yeah, it's really sweet, raisin, plum, almost like pecan pie flavor to it almost. There's really kind of a sweet, rich molasses, brown sugar, caramel, vanilla. Really tasty. There's a medium to long finish on this. A little bit of spice in the background, a little bit of cinnamon, black pepper, but a totally different experience than the Redwood Empire. So thanks so much for joining me for this review, guys. Until next time, may your sails be full and your drams be fuller. Cheers.